Hello and welcome to another episode of Molly Explain Things on Camera because it is faster than writing out a PDF-based process document. So today I'm going to show you how I do what I call an abbreviated project number request. This is specifically only for situations where you're doing a project number request to support PBOTMO ESD type work. So in lieu of these work orders being assessed to the general maintenance funds, because they qualify as capitalized work, full asset replacement, assets who have been in the system for 100 years, and the other like minor criteria that are not things that we specifically assess before we do the request, at least. You'll have to request a project number for each individual location. So on your right, you see the type of request that I get from PBOTMO. This is everything that I need. So what you'll need specifically is you'll need to know the asset ID number, the costs of work, and then you'll need Heron access. So the number one thing I want folks to try to remember is that the costs that are reflected in Hansen or Infor are not the direct costs always. So you want to make sure that these costs are confirmed through PBOTMO supervisors before you do this type of project request, because it's not always accurate. Like, this isn't linked directly to SAP. PBOTMO puts their costs and they're summarized by Maximo because they are from PBOT, etc. So this is all the information I would need. If they're doing a work order on, say, a lateral, that lateral has not been assigned an alphanumeric asset ID, you'll need to get that location-specific alphanumeric asset ID before you can do this. So for example, if I were to go to Portland Maps and type in the address for this work, or rather we'll put in the project. If I were to say, look up the work order code, excuse me, allergies, 736611. So let's say Mike Lewis or whomever sent me this work order, but it wasn't explicitly tied to a lateral asset. Say the work order was for lateral work, but it was on the main line because that lateral hadn't been assigned an asset ID yet, which is fairly common for laterals that say, you know, they need to do work on this lateral, but there's no asset ID for it. Sometimes work orders get written on the main line because it's the next adjacent one. So if that's the case for you, you can't do this yet. You have to stop and do a mapping request asking for the asset ID to be assigned to that lateral, because you're doing this work on that lateral. That lateral is being capitalized. Now, if they're doing the work for the whole main line, or the whole maintenance hole, the entire maintenance hole, excuse me, or the entire inlet, or the entire inlet lead, that's different, right? But the laterals specifically don't always have their asset ID. So you need to do that mapping update, mapping request. Please reference the other videos. There is not a video for that at this time. Please contact Molly. But in this case, I took that asset ID and I checked, and it does link to the work order and to a lateral asset. And then this says, please dig and remove roots, etc., etc. Dug out, replaced. Okay. All this checks. Now, you need to include a map for your project request in Heron. So looking this up in Portland Maps serves a dual purpose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the snag tool, and I'm just going to snag a large view of this area and then highlight where the asset is and then save this. This again, is part of that request. So I'm going to say, give it some sort of identifier. All right. Okay, so now I'll go back to Heron. And in here, so this is just my home. All right, ignore all this. Up at the top, I'm going to type in request project. If you don't have access to the processes under request project, then that means you can't request a project. You also want to make sure that you're authorized by your manager to do this, because, you know, it does link to budgets and things like that. So you click Start Process, and then scroll down in here until you see project number request. And then a new window will pop up. So first thing you're going to notice is that there is a capitalization survey. It's actually a blue link here. You need to click that and you need to fill that out first. It's a set of forms. Excuse me. It's a fillable form through Microsoft Forms. Let it load. And then the name and title of your project. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a signifier. I'm going to say Collection Systems Operations and Maintenance. ABH 556 lateral replacement work order. Have you submitted this? Yes, I'm about to. Is this tied to another project? No, it is not. What is the draft scope of your project? So what you should be noticing is that a lot of these mirror what goes into the project number request. Hold on, let me find that. No. Hey, come on now. There we go. Okay. These two often mirror each other. So what I like to do is I like to open them side by side, and I'm just like copying and pasting them left to right. Okay. So this is an active project. It's a secondary project under maintenance and reliability. Is it an emergency? No. Emergency refers to emergency ordinance, not how urgent the work is. So unless you're filing like an emergency ordinance through the council process or whatever the current process is for the city of Portland, the answer is no. CWG objective, maintenance and repair. Is there work in the right of way? In this case, yes. It should not. Other bureaus involved? PBOT. Other bureau project number? None. There isn't a project number. And then confidence level. I would say that this is optimal. We know fairly certain what the cost is because Mike included it in his email. I'm not going to say complete because obviously I don't have the final billing and I'm not that sure, but I'm fairly sure. OSIP is no. And then project scope. Look at that. So if you want to save yourself a little bit of time, what you want to do is you want to go back to that window where we had Portland maps and it talks about what we did, right? So we go through all this. They don't want the details of all of this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually include a link to this work order, all right? Because that's what the work was done for in Heron, or excuse me, for the charges that we need to assess through Heron. Sorry, the plague of multiple windows, right? So project scope. This one. Okay, so I paused you while I typed because that is just easier. So I typed this out. This work will be performed by city crews for work on BES assets under work order XYZ. Reference this if needed, and I included the link. Work performed on site included full asset replacement. After project number creation, PBOTMO, ESD supervisors will link the work order cost to the project number. Work associated with this lateral replacement shall be assessed against the ESOM at maintenance operation budget or RRGA. Please assign the style of number. For questions, reach out to my boss. And the short project description is PBOTMO work order XYZ full lateral replacement. This work falls under the capitalization policies for BES. So there's the project description there. I'm going to copy it over here. What kind of asset are you proposing to acquire or build? Okay, storm and wastewater physical infrastructure, correct. Not green, not land, not building, not leasehold, not moving, not non-moving, not mechanical, electrical, or plumbing. Not software and not intangible. Other type. Collection systems, lateral, asset, ID is included in the project number request, which is ABH556. Okay. So I know there looks like a lot of questions in that survey that goes pretty quickly. All right. Primary facility type. It is a sanitary pipeline. It's the lateral. It is is this project billable to another bureau? For example, is the other agency paying? Yes. PBOT. Excuse me. I do not know. Outside NA. Agency address. NA. Outside contact and phone number. I am going to give them Mike Lewis's information from the email. Phone copy. Nope. 503 823 8538. Okay. So we don't need to do a PRF. And for the project photo, we don't need that. We're going to use that snag that I talked about in the last section that I put into downloads. That's what we're going to drop into this map area. The area is the area of the city, the southwest. Specific project location is the street address specifically, which is there. So I clicked on the map and then I clicked on this. Southwest Mitchell Court. And I'm going to come back to Heron. No, excuse me. Okay, project manager is Molly. Okay, my supervisor is Mr. Fred McGregor. The drop down is being stubborn, so I guess I'll have to power scroll it. Keep going. Okay. QRSW. Alright, well, I guess we're going to do Amber Clayton. Yes. Then senior engineer can be Fred. Awesome. Okay, program manager. This was a on-call, it would be me. I'm going to put me because that makes it so that I can do payments and stuff. Construction phase manager, I'm also going to put myself. This just basically gives me access to the processes from within that section. So then, because Michael asked me to make this, I'm able to actually get it, if that makes sense. So then, the consultant, leave blank, contractor, leave blank, public involvement, leave blank. The start phase is construction, all right? The design budget is 0. The construction budget is what PBOTMO sent you, plus 10% for contingency. And in fact, let's do 20 because we don't know if they have paving follow-up or what have you. So I'm going to put 20,000 and I'm going to multiply that by 20% and I'm going to get 24,000. What's important to remember is that this just sets those benchmarks for the initial project section. It doesn't actually do your requisitions or anything like that, okay? And in the start phase, I always like to go back a couple weeks because I don't know specifically when they started this, but if I really wanted to be accurate, to double check, I could go back to the work order, right? So the work order for this work. The work order itself was initiated on 8/1, so I want to make sure that the project date backdates at least 8/1. Then we go to our Heron pop-out window. All right, 8/1, a little farther back, and then always give yourself at least 3 months because you don't know how long charges are going to clear and things like that. Okay, so that's it. That's all you had to do. Then you're going to click submit. And it's going to say, hey, did you complete your survey? And I'm going to be like, yeah, I was working on that. Okay. Is the proposed project scope of work assets intended to be acquired or built for use in operations? And for more than 1 year? Yes. What is the estimated useful life? So we do have benchmarks for this. Let me pull them up. Okay, so I went and got that information. There are significantly more asset types on this list, but I didn't include them in the screen grab because they're things like HVAC, piping, and things that don't directly relate to ESOM, PBOTMO type requests. So, based on this, is it a 100-year lateral or a 50-year lateral? So it is a 100-year pipe or a 100-year lateral if it's replaced with pipes and fittings. If it's CIPP lined or internally lined, then it's a 50-year pipe or a 50-year lateral. So since this was replaced with pipe, according to the work order, it's 100. If you have any questions about that, come talk to myself, talk to your boss, etc. Okay. If an asset part of your project will not be used, etc., apply. Give us an explanation. Well, that's not applicable. Check. Okay. Select the most appropriate for your scope. Are you building, replacing, building and replacing, or treating? Okay, we're replacing an existing asset. Next. If replacing an exact, please provide the project numbers or a brief description of the asset. Okay, so this is the part where you go back to Portland Maps and you say, okay, there we go. Okay, here's the asset ID. So you'll notice that there's no as-built number. There's an installation date. Okay, so what that means is typically this could have been installed by PBOTMO, or it could be that it was installed as part of the project for the main line. To be sure, what you're going to do is you're going to see there's a work order for the installation, which there won't always be, especially if it predates a certain portion in our system. What I do is I go to the main line that the lateral is connected to. I find the as-built. And I find the applicable page. CO9, CO9, which is sheet 10, CO9, you can see that they CIPP'd the main line, but they did not do the laterals. And then let's check C10 just to be sure. You can see here's Mitchell Court and here's 26, and they did not do the laterals. So that means that this is not the as-built for the lateral, right? That means that it's the as-built for the main line. So what was the original as-built for this pipe before it was lined? So if you look at the work order, or excuse me, if you look at the asset information as a whole for the record, it says segment was lined with this job. However, for history, see this job, 1834. All right, rock and roll. So 1834. See how that's not a hyperlink? Cool. That means you're going to have to go find it. So, in order to go find it, I have to log in to my token. Hold, please. So, now that I'm connected to the city network, I can go to the city's online as-built database, put that number in, and pull that up. So, according to this, interesting. Well, that's what you get for picking an example project. Alright, hold on. Okay, using the instructions in this as-built folder, I was able to find that it's District 3A. And when I went to District 3A, I found this. So, if replacing or treating an existing asset, please provide the project number. PRJNR project number. Hitting B twice, no good. I'm going to help them out. Reference sheet D3A. Lateral installed as part of this project. And what was it put in service? This is why we looked up the project number. April 1950. Okay. All right, so there we go. Next. Okay. Compelling questions aim to determine if your project will be exclusively on this or as a portion. Okay. Is the scope of your work exclusively? Yes. Exclusively. Yes. Exclusively. Yes. Is the proposed project scope intended to rebuild, refurbish, improve, enhance, or rehab this asset? No. Yes. Yes. No. Next. Okay. Estimated project cost. All right. So, going back to our Heron window, right? There we are. We clicked the completed. And we're going to come down here and we're going to make sure these match. 24. It's going to say, hey, that's not a number. Well, yeah, because I included the sign. And then click submit. That is done. And now I can come into Heron occasionally by navigating through the request project section, going to processes, and taking a look to see if it's done. If it says closed, then that means you have a project number. Closed means that that process is done. So it's done and ready. So let's pretend this is my project number request. I click on it and I open it up and there is the project number. So that would be the project number that I then copy and respond to the email to Michael. So I would respond back and I'd say, hi, letting you know that the project number has been approved. It's E12345. Please link all charges to this code. Thank you. And there you have it.